Hey everybody, I stumbled upon something that for me feels like one of the most important devotions we can do together. It came from this book called The End of Youth Ministry. And I was actually talking to the author yesterday, and he said he didn't choose that title. It's kind of like, makes you think it's going to be like this terrible thing. But anyway, within it, he talks about humility. And what does that have to do with being stressed out, this series that we're doing? Well, I think you're going to recognize something in here. He talks about three kinds of humility. He says the first one is to assert, I am nobody compared to others, this kind of self-hatred. And he says that's not useful. The second kind of humility or distortion of humility is to say this, and I think this one is going to really register. So listen to this. It says, I am nothing compared to what I could or should be. How many of you have ever kind of heard like stay humble, but you really should do better in this or that or the other thing? Maybe it's a sport, or maybe it's at school, or that kind of thing. Like stay really humble, be a servant, but also achieve more. You can do better. And we get this kind of pressure that comes out of this kind of sense of really a distortion of what humility really means. Now, listen to what true humility sounds like. And we're going to get to our verse here in a second. This kind of humility, it says, asserts that along with all other human beings and the rest of creation, my own self is not the kind of being that could be could be something on its own. In other words, my being needs others to pray for me, to love me, to hear my story, and for me to hear theirs. Here's what it kind of comes down to. Humility is not thinking you're a worm or that you're a loser or an underachiever. True humility is the confession that you need a minister, that you need Christ, and that we need one another. And in that way, we can empty ourselves. We can be humble and vulnerable with others because we know that something of what they have is going to fill us up. Our story matters to them. Their story matters to us, and we're connected. Now, listen to our verse for the day. This is right after Jesus has washed the disciples' feet. And he says this, or it says this, and this is in John chapter 13, starting with verse 12. He said, after Jesus had washed their feet, he had put on his robe and had returned to the table, he said to them, do you know what I have done to you? You call me teacher and Lord, and you are right, for that is what I am. See, Jesus doesn't say, I'm a terrible teacher, I'm a terrible Lord, I've done this. He claims who he is, right? He stays with his story. So if I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. For I have set you an example that you also should do as I have done to you. Very truly I tell you, servants are not greater than their master, nor are messengers greater than the one who sent them. You see, he's leaving room for other people's stories, even though he's the master. All right, if you know these things, you are blessed if you do them. Jesus doesn't wash the disciples' feet to say, you better serve people or else, or you should do better with that. He washes the disciples' feet because he wants to show them an example of humility that feeds everyone and that takes away that kind of stress of you should or you could or you better, and just leaves us together with one another, wrapped in God's great story, but also in the particular stories of one another. I hope that gives you life and breath today. Amen.